I don't want to get her involved in this. I don't want to ruin her life. Like it's something like this. I don't want her involved in this. Okay.
It made contact and shattered.
At some point, Chris locates what's called a driveway.
Brian Laundrie's body has been found. Law enforcement had considered Laundrie the only person of interest in the murder of his fiancée, Gabby Petito.
That's all it is the truth. So there's nothing to hide in that coroner's report. There's nothing to hide by not having Callie take a polygraph. And if the truth comes out, and this was
reference to a missing 4-year-old, the parents have called in and advised that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her. They've been dealing for her. She's been gone for about 10 minutes now.
Hello?
It's gone.
Hey everybody, thanks for being here and welcome to another ATS live stream. And tonight we have some special guests. We have Teresa from Criminality and I also have Kelly from CDT joining me. And we've got a lot to discuss tonight. Earlier, if anyone saw CDT's live stream, she did an afternoon live stream on the Dylan Rounds case, which is what we'll be discussing tonight. And it was a really good stream. I suggest you guys check it out. And she gave me a shout out pretty much and said like, oh, Amber, can't wait to join your panel tonight because you always do things so organized, this and that. And I literally just figured we would talk like this. And I'm like, now I feel like I got to put something together. So I put something together and we're just going to go over some clips that I find very suspicious regarding Kurt Wadsworth and his daughter, Sammy, aka Talina. People have called her Tay. I've seen Tylen also be mentioned. So we're just going to go over some stuff and start off with some Facebook updates from the Facebook group with Dylan Rounds, because I know some people aren't in the group or don't have Facebook. So I just want to read off some stuff that was in there this week. And hello, you two. Thanks for joining me.
Hey. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Hello and hello to chat. I'm looking forward to talking through all this with you guys.
Yeah, and I'm happy that we can talk about our brainstorming outside of our messaging group conversation, because it's just so much easier to just be up on each other's panels and discussing it. And we've done these discussions on their channels as well, guys. So if you want to check out other stuff with us together, brainstorming things, you can check out their channels, which is in the description boxes. But I guess I'll just get started because I know once I play these audios for you ladies, we're just going to start the conversation. So do you mind if I just play it and then we just get into it?
Do it.
Okay. And hello, the mods and everyone in chat, Alex Erickson, Mel Mack, everybody, thank you for being here. And thank you so much, you two, again.
Dylan Rounds was last heard from on May 28th, 2022. Dylan has brown eyes, brown hair, and is 20 years old. He is 5'11", and he weighs roughly 160 pounds. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Dylan Rounds, you are urged to call 435-734-3800. The official Find Dylan Rounds Facebook group has posted a few recent posts this week. One was Justin Rounds' happy birthday post to his son. It reads, "Happy birthday, Dylan. Today has been a roller coaster of a day. Seeing all of the posts, birthday wishes, kind words, and pictures makes me realize even more how proud I am of you. I told myself last year after I posted pics of you telling you happy birthday that I would take more pics of you from then on. Almost all the pics I have of you were when you were young enough to let me and when you were working, except for one I took early this spring in Arizona. I also got one of the best gifts I could ever possibly ask for today. Dylan Rounds, I got your Class A CDL today. We talked about it a lot and how you wanted to get it before the law changed. You mean the world to me, son. Wherever you are, I hope you know how proud I am of you and I love you. Happy birthday. Also, we put your truck in the lineup today. This week, they also posted the new billboard in Elko, Nevada. The post reads, "This billboard is in Elko, Nevada on 180 facing west for eastbound traffic. Thank you, Saunders Outdoor Advertisers, for donating this billboard to help find Dylan Rounds. Also, big thanks to Katie and Angie for coordinating."
Okay, so those were just the little Facebook updates that occurred this week. Not much in regards to anything further in the investigation, but I just I can't let go basically of some of the things that Kurt says, and I don't know, even though he hasn't been arrested or anything like that, to me that doesn't mean he's not in the realm of possibilities, because we just don't have any idea where Dylan is at this moment. So I feel like it's fair to question some of the things he says. So let me just get started there.
Well, I just want to say I'm almost positive that's a typo, and I think it's supposed to be I-80.
Yeah, I know. That's why I messaged you guys, and I'm like, does this say 1?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it has to be a typo. I don't, or something. I don't know. That makes no sense. It has to be I-80.
Right. And I'm like, well, I have to read it verbatim. So I redid it, because at first I did say I-80, and then I'm like, but it says,
yeah, there's nothing 1-80. Like that doesn't, no, it doesn't even make sense.
Oof. And I kind of wanted to map it out too, but I didn't get around to it, which probably would have given me my answer. But I was like, does this say 1? Either way, I'm just like, okay, new billboard. It would be interesting to kind of know, because it gives says it's facing west or eastbound or whatever. So I'm just curious where exactly its whereabouts is. And was it strategic in a way, does somebody
does it actually make sense where it's actually at?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done that either. I don't know.
So this was just a little news clip that kind of leads you into who Kurt is. Because a lot of people, if you're not following this case, you get kind of tripped up with who's who. So this is just a little bit, and it's Crime Time with Jess. The news got it wrong on the screen. So I just wanted to clarify that in case anybody hasn't seen this interview. It's pretty interesting.
The man, Kurt Wadsworth, admits the FBI contacted him, and Dylan is a friend of his.
A hard-working young kid that had a dream, and I wanted, he asked me to be involved in it. And there's a backhoe operators all in the beginning.
Wadsworth lives in the town of Montello, Nevada, about 30 miles from Lucin, and locals have seen them together at Wadsworth's home. But he's angry that people have connected him to Dylan's disappearance.
If you don't have any faith in me that I'm the one that can solve this thing. I know everything about Dylan, as far as here. They know nothing about Dylan's life, or absolutely nothing.
I really hope.
Go with that and talk about all these psychics that I've been listening to saying.
So these are audio clips from Salty's channel. So they kind of speak for themselves.
And that Candace was involved. And I called the FBI, so my daughter, both of them called them and said, dude.
So they were trying to have a live panel to discuss a rumor that they heard that Candace got picked up by the FBI and that she was involved. And he's saying that psychics told him that she was, pretty much.
Which psychic? Would this be the ex-wife psychic? Is this the YouTube psychic? Is this which psychic?
Right, exactly. And that's the thing is, he's never once, even his daughter have never once come forward and been like, here, I don't know. It's just, then they say that it's his ex-wife. So it's just the perfect fallback. Oh, how convenient. This psychic is somebody that you know. And Kurt has gone on and on. I don't know if you guys have heard, but defending even his ex-wife. He's like, she gave me 8 children. What am I going to do? Just abandon her? No, not going to happen. So they have still a good bond, it seems. So for her, if that's the ex-wife he's referring to, that's the psychic, because it's been said either different ways, that there's like somebody outside the ex-wife being the psychic, and then it's been said that the wife is the psychic.
And when you bring that up, it just becomes, well, there's a lot. He listens to a lot of psychics.
And then Reverend Donna, and it's like he reached out to her. It almost makes me wonder if like his purpose of getting in touch with a psychic was to kind of make his claims true in a way. You know what I mean?
I've thought that. That's funny that you say that. I've thought that, because the whole thing with him calling on Tuesday to tell Candace that Dylan was at Robert Avila's, and then he says it was from a psychic. Well, he hadn't talked to any psychics yet. So, okay, so now we have to rewind and go, oh, what psychic would he have talked to before it all became online stuff? All right, well, let's say ex-wife is a psychic, and she's the one that told me. And now it's like, okay, well, we got to get some psychics in here so we have an answer for why we're saying this is a psychic. I don't know. That was always weird to me too.
I agree, and I just can't help but wonder now that his daughter is, admitted how much YouTube she watches and how she reads comments and live chat streams, etc. If she had a role in helping Kurt reach out to Donna, Reverend Donna Serafina. Just my thoughts, because I'm like, how did Kurt, find her? And he acts like he's not even, tech savvy enough to get onto StreamYard, but it also could be the connection, whatever. But just interesting that they went to Donna.
Exactly, especially since we find out more and more how closely, I mean, even out of her own words herself, Sammy, aka Taylina, like follows, like she's talking about like comments, and she's like, I read these comments and like all this stuff. It's like she's spending a lot of time following this through YouTube. So it would kind of make sense if there was a connection, just from her being in the realm of true crime on YouTube, the algorithm,
And I think it was interesting too that Kurt had said he never had used sidekicks. People say I say it like sidekicks, but sidekicks.
You do say it like sidekicks.
I know.
Kurt never had sidekicks.
Yeah, he never had sidekicks prior to this, but sidekicks prior to this. And I'm like, okay, but if your ex-wife is one, it's just, I don't know. I really just feel like this whole sidekick thing is a front, like to something else. And I don't really know what that is, but.
And you know what's interesting too? You just reminded me of a conversation that Kurt had with somebody. I want to say it was Salty, and he's saying how he talked to Crime Time with Jess about horoscopes or something along the lines of like the realm of like psychic type stuff. And he's like, yeah, she was telling me all this stuff. And I was like thinking about it, like, I never heard that before. And then I was like, it makes sense. So it's in my mind, it's like, wait, so your ex-wife who you had 8 children with is this psychic, and you've never heard this type of like conversation before until Crime Time with Jess kind of introduced you to it?
That was interesting to me too.
I'm like, what?
And she didn't just like start being psychic or a psychic.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's something, a gift that if it's true and not a scam, like a long time, he would have known about it, and that type of ideology that it seemed he was having this conversation with Crime Time and with Jess. And if you listen to this part again, I'm just going to rewind it so we can play it all the way through, because we've unpacked it. Like you'll hear even more. I mean, they're reaching out, him and his daughters are reaching out to FBI, like not even just their local sheriffs that they kind of have like a communal relationship with, it's like FBI agents. Like he says, like, we reached out to them and both my daughters did. It's like, they're like, Kelly, you were saying earlier today, they're just way too like involved. And I know everybody's innocent till proven guilty, but these things to me is just strange. And I know that you two know a lot about this type of breakdown with behavior things and cases, because this like reminds me of other cases that we've, researched, and people who insert themselves like this.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm the one that can solve this thing. I know everything about Dylan, as far as here. They know nothing about Dylan's life, or absolutely nothing.
I really hope.
Go with that and talk about all these psychics that I've been listening to saying that Candace was involved. And I called the FBI. So my daughter, both of them called them and said, dude, you need to look in Idaho, not quit looking out here. All the psychics are saying his body's in Idaho. And, that's where the players are. I mean, the players that played here, they're all in jail. That would be Jim, Robert, and Chase.
Okay.
Whether Candace got arrested or not, but that's kind of where we're going to go with that and talk about all these psychics that I've been listening to saying that Candace was involved. And I called the FBI. So my daughter, both of them called them and said, dude, you need to look in Idaho, not quit looking out here. All the psychics are saying his body's in Idaho. And, that's where the players are. I mean, the players that played here, they're all in jail. That would be Jim, Robert, and Chase. That cleared.
So then there's this other part, my last clip that I want to play, that is just, it goes even further with something that Kurt is talking about, Too Salty, and a whole different live stream, like the one where Jim Terry gets in it with Ellen Berg. It was from that, and it's like kind of hard audio, but it's got like things that like make your head spin.
Dylan wasn't there for sure. That's for damn sure. But I could think of 4 or 5 other places they get me help. So
this part was his conversation with Crime Time with Jess, and he's talking about, you know, when the cops went over to Robert Avila's house, and obviously Dylan wasn't there. But then he goes on to say, he's like, but I could think of 4 or 5 other places where he could be. So I, something along the lines of tipped them off to those too. Like, so it seemed like he was that close in the investigation in these very early on days where he's like telling law enforcement like where to go, pretty much. Like, check this place out. It's just way too involved, in my opinion.
But he thinks that he's the only one that can. Okay, here's my issue. Well, first I want to address Emily in chat. It really wants to make this point that law enforcement goes off the facts and the science, which I agree with. They will not care about what any psychic says unless they're like at the very end of their ropes and they're like, sure, go ahead and tell us what you got. And if there's something in there, then they may go with it. But it's very, very, very rare. Do I believe in psychics? Yes. I think that there are people who have certain abilities that other people do not have. But I also believe that the majority of people who claim to have those abilities do not have anything. It's not something that I just am like, oh, she says she's a psychic, so I believe her.
Right. Agree.
To your point, he's talking about that he's the only one that can solve the case. He's the only one that can find Dylan. Because he's the one who knows Dylan the best, and he's the one who knows that area the best. If that's true, why would you go to psychics to find out where Dylan is?
That's a good point.
Right, exactly. It's like just contradictory.
Yeah, it makes no sense. If I am the only one who can find him, I know where he's going to be because I know him the best and I know the area the best. Why am I not out looking for him? Like, how much time? And I can't say that maybe he has gone out. I don't know, but I would think that would be more productive than talking to psychics online. I don't know. So I just wanted to make that. I think that's just really weird. That's really weird. If he's the one that could find him, then go find him. And if he's in Idaho, and you believe that he's in Idaho because the psychic told you he was, then how do you know that area better than anybody else? Which one is it?
Yeah, exactly. And he said that he would be the one to find Dylan because he knows him better than other people. So then, you know, that still is like, then what would that have to do with this tip being telling somebody told you that he was in Idaho? You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
Wouldn't you have known? I don't know. And
if he knows Dylan better than everybody else, if Dylan isn't the one who just up and walked away on his own, does he know Chase or Robert or Jim? Does he know these people better than anybody else? These people he's saying are involved in the disappearance of Dylan? Because if Dylan didn't go away on his own, it doesn't matter if you know Dylan better than anybody else because you're not tracking Dylan.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the focus for him seems like find Dylan, where it's like, what about figuring out why this happened? Like, why is Jim Brenner being listed the main suspect? Like, what? And he said things that he didn't believe that Don or Jim were capable of murdering Dylan. He said that to Salty. And then in another interview, he said things like, I don't know, maybe I didn't know Jim as well as I thought I did. So it's like,
well, if he's saying he doesn't know his own criminal history, then how would he know him as well as he thought he did?
yeah. And him saying that the psychic's telling him that he's in Idaho, but then why did you show up at Robert Avila's house first?
And isn't the new one that he was at Rontello's?
Yeah, yeah. And then there, in between that rumor was the one that Dylan was in Robert Avila's car because Robert was seen at some gas station looking sketchy or something with Chase. Or no?
Oh, yeah.
What's the info on that? The sighting where Robert's looking sketchy.
From my understanding, it was, basically the gas station worker said that she sees Robert in there often and he always is a little off. But on this particular day, I believe it was Saturday, he seemed extremely like different, on edge, nervous, whatever. But it was like, elevated even for Robert. And then I did hear somewhere that allegedly Chase was in Robert's car. But I don't know. I'd like for her to speak out again. It would be interesting.
Do you remember what time she said that was at?
I don't even want to give a time because I really cannot think of if it was even said or when it was.
Yeah,
but I could have
sure on that.
Yeah.
But so far she's only been on minimal streams, so it might be easier to pinpoint than Kurt's statements. But
yeah, I need to go back and listen to that because that's, I think, important now. And we haven't gotten here yet, but with the conversation with Taylina about the 3 cars, now I care more about the time of that gas station thing, which I don't think I even paid attention to much before.
Yeah, maybe somebody in chat or watching on replay can let us know because we'll be looking at it too. But, it's nice to, if anyone else knows the answer to that. But also, I mean, I know you probably want to go into more depth about it, Teresa, but I did see you kind of ask Taylene a few questions when you were on panel with Salty. And I was like, I wonder what kind of vibes Teresa's getting because, you've done interviews with other cases, and these interviews, I think I wonder if like you don't realize how important they are until like a week later or something later where we're like, wait, she said this. I don't know. I just feel like it's so casual the way like you're able to talk with people, but then at the same time, like the information is just very like interesting and important. So I was just wondering, like overall, without you don't have to go too much into it, but what was your vibe from her?
It's tough because that stream was so long and I didn't get to talk to her really one-on-one per se. I mean, I did at times. The other panel guests were very nice and respectful. So it wasn't like there was interrupting, but everybody was talking and everybody was asking questions. So there wasn't a good solid flow. You could tell she was very defensive, especially when Jim Terry got on there. I was like, all right, well, you could tell these two don't really like each other. So I was going to go up. And I think I told you guys I was going to go, but then I was like, she's a little heated right now. I think I'm just going to chill for a second. And then when things kind of calmed back down, I went up. She was very nice to me. I mean, it's tough. I could see that Kurt obviously is not portraying himself in the best light on social media. So I think that she does want to go and show her dad in a different light, and so that people can see that this is not all he is. This is not the only thing he is, and this is why he does the things he does, because she knows him better than anybody else. I just got the vibe that she has information, and she has information that I think would be able to really help clear up a lot of questions. But I think that she's so pushed off, or I don't know how to say it, turned off by this whole social media thing. And we talked about it a little bit when I was on that channel. It's like there are people that are in true crime that we want to cover the cases. We want to discuss the cases. We want to discuss the possibilities. but we're not trying to like fight with everybody else about their opinions. You and the three of us don't agree on every case all the time. Like but we're not going to fight with each other about it. And I think that she's really like gotten into that side of things where people are just really fighting with each other about what the other people think. So she's very guarded. Guarded is the word I think I'm looking for. So I don't know. I can't. I guess that was a really long answer to a really short. Well, should have been really a short answer. Was I don't know. I could tell she was really defensive about her dad. She was almost a little bit defensive about James Brenner when I asked something about him. But it was also a very long live that she was on the entire time and had some people up there that weren't vibing well. I would like to talk to her without all of that and give you a better answer. I'll say that.
I'd like to see that too, honestly.
Yeah, I think you would do a great interview, like just with her, Noah, and ask some of those questions it's kind of one of those situations I feel that we're getting into with her speaking. It's like the more she speaks, the more questions we have. Same with Kurt. The more he speaks, the more questions we have. It's not a situation where it's like, oh, Kurt and his daughter have spoken out. We can kind of put some things to bed. This adds up, ABC. It's all flowing. It's more like this is not quite flowing and this is not quite sitting right. And the question is why? Like you said, Teresa, I think that was a good word, guarded. And I feel like you could look at that either way. And I feel like it's fair to kind of speculate. Do they know more, or are they guarded because they do feel defensive? I mean, if it, is true that they had never really known about this true crime world on YouTube, it is a lot to suddenly, just because, he was working with Dylan and would let him stay in his motorhome, all of a sudden these people are just like gunning to know who he is, what he's about. So, I really do feel like at this point it could go either way, but the more they talk, I know me personally, the more questions I have and the more things just aren't quite sitting right with me.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that I think if it was my dad that people were on the internet trying to say was a murderer and killed some kid, I could imagine me being a Taylina owl and going on and be like, listen up, dumbasses.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to talk about my dad like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, 100%.
If I was with him that whole day,
yeah.
She asked, like, how do I get people to stop saying that? And I offered a solution. I don't think she appreciated the solution, but it was the best I could come up with at the time. She's like, how do I prove that he had nothing to do with it or that my family had nothing to do with it? I'm like, you're in a family get together. All of your family is together. Typically, people are taking pictures. There's videos, and all of that stuff has metadata. Like, if you wanted YouTube to shut up, you could really easily say, look here's my dad at 8:30 in the morning. Here he is at 9:30. Here he is at 10:20. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could really shut people down. Obviously, my dad was here this entire time. Or like, here's we went to the gas station. Okay, here's the gas station lady. What time did we show up at the gas station? Here's our gas receipt. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you really wanted to shut people up, it would be really easy to do.
And you know what is a thing that I feel we would all do differently than what she's doing is we would show our faces. Like, I know it sucks going on camera, but like when you're trying to get your message across, people want to look you in the eye and they want to feel like if you're defending something as dark and as deep as being involved in this disappearance, you should probably come on. If you're going to bother even coming on, come on camera. Like, let us see your eyes and your mannerisms. Like, it's helpful. Like, it really is helpful if you're trying to come across as being honest and straightforward. That helps a lot.
It does. But then you have the people who will turn it around and will just make fun of how she looks or, and that's the sad part about all of this is because there are people that are going to do that. They're going to make fun of how she looks. They're going to read into, oh my gosh, she looked to the left and not to the right. And then she's going to look at a dog on the other side. You know what I mean? Like, they're just going to make up whatever they want to. So there isn't a really big win-win with that. So it's kind of like you have to find a black and white answer and say, hey, here's my family's not involved. This is where we were. This is what we were doing. And this is how it is. Like, there's nothing else I can tell you. So you take it from here. And if people don't believe you then you're kind of just done. Like, whatever. I put my proof out there and I'm out.
Yeah. And see, I liked the way that you you weren't saying, hey, Tay, Lena, you need to do this. You know, she had asked and you gave that suggestion, and then she's like, but why should I have to? And I really like the way you handled it. You're like, well, you don't, but you asked, and it would make sense. Like that would be one way. Because Kurt himself said, you know, his kids and people who were in town didn't start getting up till around 10 a.m. So it's like, when did Kurt get up? You know, I don't know. There's just a lot of questions still. And then again, the more she talks, the more little things are trickling out, like how Jim Brenner returned home and there's dually tracks, and how someone saw Chase leaving on a 4-wheeler, but yet they don't know who these other vehicles are. It's just really hard to kind of sift through it all.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
We're running out of time. Like I run out of time in the day. I'm like, how do they I think there was a stream when I was going to bed the other night. I put it in I'm like, it's like a 24-hour marathon.
I
like,
know.
You can't, if you, otherwise you blink and you miss stuff. It's ridiculous. Because there's just so much talking about it.
I know. I slept with headphones in last night and I didn't sleep well, and that's my own fault. But I woke up this morning and I'm just like, just still going and going. And hello, John. Good to see you. And just, hey, everybody in chat. Thanks for being here. But yeah, it's a deep, deep rabbit hole of a case. It's awful.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting, but crazy and strange at the same time is like you start learning new lingo and things being said, like when they're talking about parts of like equipment and stuff. And I'm like, well, what is that? And all this stuff. It reminds me of like listening to Troy McCoy's interview for the Watts case. And they're talking about the oil procedures and the mechanisms used and all that. And I'm like learning about like the oil industry and the business.
Now you're going to be like an entrepreneur when, after true crime. You're like, I know how to farm. I know how to deal with oil.
Yeah, but on a real level, and I'm trying to understand the concept of the wash, because I feel like this wash that everyone keeps talking about and you know, referring to in live streams, like I just want to dig into that a little bit more.
Well, tell me more about that.
Yeah, I'll let you know what I find.
Okay.
So I started turning them on to that. So Dylan wasn't there for sure. That's for damn sure. But I could think of 4 or 5 other places they get me help. So I started turning them on to that.
Kidnapped.
So he said I started to turn them on to that, like pointing the law enforcement agencies into different directions where Dylan could be. It's just very strange. Like it almost makes it seem like they think he knows more of where he could be also. Like they know that Kurt has firsthand knowledge in a way.
Maybe sold.
I know he was kidnapped.
Okay, yeah, this next part, this is the part that I really wanted to share with you guys. And then we can just kind of go off into different areas of the case. But this next part, and Teresa, I think we lost her. There she is. Okay.
I booted myself. I'm sorry.
You're fine. I do it all the time. That's what I did in
a random button and I'm gone. And I'm like, wait a minute, what the heck?
No worries. So yeah, no, this next part is just, it was in that long live stream on Salty's channel where he's, it's just crazy. Like I can't even put it into words. Hold on.
No doubt in my mind he was kidnapped for at least a few days.
You think for a few days? Is there any information, anybody out there getting kidnapped?
First off, he just said there's no doubt in my mind he was kidnapped, because he was asked this on Salty's panel.
I hadn't heard this one yet. I hadn't caught it.
Okay, hold on.
And sold in sex trafficking since Nevada is right beside Lucin? I mean, you guys are in Nevada.
Hey,
yeah.
No. So this is on Salty's panel. I think the long one with Jim Terry gets in it with Ellenberg. And
okay.
Kurt stops in, and I don't know. I don't know his state of mind, like if he's inebriated. He just seemed he's very comfortable talking to Salty in this live stream. I don't even know if this part's up anymore. It probably is, I think. But they just start talking about theories, and somebody on the panel asked him if he thought that Dylan could be kidnapped or a theory of trafficking being involved. So I'll rewind it a little bit so we can
he would not be statistically very high on the statistics of persons who are trafficked. Not to say it's not possible, but he's not really the demographic of traffic victims.
Well, that helps as far as where we can put it up on our board of theories and probable avenues to go down.
Okay, so this is some call in and somebody who's on the panel and Kurt calls in.
Yes.
Okay. I could think of 4 or 5 other places they get me help. So I start turning them on that.
Kidnapped? Maybe sold?
I know he was kidnapped. No doubt in my mind he was kidnapped. For at least a few days.
You think for a few days? Is there any information, anybody out there getting kidnapped and sold in sex trafficking since Nevada is right beside Lucin? I mean, you guys are in Nevada.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I say that is by way of a psychic. She said that Dylan was still alive. And we're talking about 4 or 5 days into this. And I ran with that because I thought, I never dreamed that he would be alive. I just figured somebody clipped his ass, But when that psychic said
Okay, hold on.
Did he just say somebody clipped his ass?
Yes. Yes.
I have not ever heard this.
I haven't either.
Okay. I'll send you the screen recording of it so that you can kind of have your own little copy.
See, this is what CD's talking about when she's like, okay, I'm excited about coming on panel because she's always got her shit together.
Exactly.
This is what she's talking about right here.
Yep.
Well, what's funny is I didn't even have these clips together. Like I said, I planned on just doing it like the lazy way. And then she just gave me that compliment. And I was like, I got to pull something out of the hat. And I found this. And I was
did good.
Oh.
Yeah, you delivered.
I knew that I recorded it. But this next part is going to trip you out even more. So he says, I figured somebody just clipped his ass. For one, that was like jaw dropping in itself. And then this next part, he trips up and he says, when somebody told me, and then he goes, when the psychic told me he was being held hostage or whatever. So I've edited it where like I take that out and you can just hear it back to back. So let me just play this part. This little treat for you.
when that psychic said, never dreamed that he would be alive. I just figured somebody clipped his ass, But when that psychic said he was alive and he's being held.
Did you hear it?
Oh, yes.
No, say it. What did he say?
When that psychic.
Yeah.
So it goes along with the concept that he does have firsthand knowledge, possibly. And he's blamed it on this invisible psychic that who's his ex-wife in some stories and we don't even know who it is in other stories. So in my opinion, I feel like Kurt did know exactly what was going down, through the grapevine maybe, or after the fact, I don't know. But here in this whole live stream where he's just super comfortable with everyone, he slips up and he says, when that psychic told me that he was being held, and like, maybe it's nothing, it could be absolutely nothing. Like, obviously a psychic could be considered a quote, somebody also, you know what I mean?
Right. But I just feel like that little piece right there goes along with the theory. If you possibly think Kurt knows more, is getting more information from someone, allegedly, hypothetically, and is using psychics as a front, kind of. That's really interesting right there to me.
Thank you.
Can we play it one more time? I want to hear it one more time.
Yep. And I strive to impress CDT and you as well, Teresa.
You've done that. Just a typical Wednesday. Amber's like, wait, I actually have to organize a little bit. And you did.
I knew I clipped this for a reason, but it's just, I'll play it again. The whole little segment, even him talking about, I figured somebody just clipped his ass. Like, he's not done that one time. Like, there's been other points where he's theorized about clipped him, and it's just very like we have no reason to think that Dylan was shot.
Which is weird because I actually say that. I'm like, maybe Jim Brenner was just shooting because he thought people were on his property and maybe he accidentally got Dylan. And Taylina's like, well, what makes you think that Dylan was shot? And I was like, you know what? That's a good point. I don't know. That's what I was thinking because of people, all the stories of the different people out there who would, have all these illegal weapons that they're not allowed to have and that they're shooting at people to get them off their property. But now he's saying, like, I figured he was clipped.
Yeah. Like, wait a minute. I thought like you had reason to think he was still alive. And actually in this segment, I think he says, and I still hope that he's still alive or something like that. But it's like, you just said you figured he got clipped. And he said it before, like the terminology clip.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me play it again for you.
When that psychic never dreamed that he would be alive, I just figured somebody clipped his ass, But when that psychic said he was alive and he's doing health, I days into this, and I ran with that because I thought I never dreamed that he would be alive. I just figured somebody clipped his ass, But when that psychic said never dreamed that he would be alive, I just figured somebody clipped his ass, But when that psychic said he was alive and he's doing health, I ran with it, and I still believe it. What good's a dead Dylan? What good's a bag of bones? Ain't worth a shit. If Dylan's alive, they can sell his organs. They can use him as. If he's dead, he ain't worth nothing. He ain't worth shit. He's stupid.
So he goes, and that's the thing, is the audio for that live stream was not the best. And I think that was before Salty got his new microphone. Now all his streams are very clear and you can hear it well. But for some reason, this live stream was a little choppy. So I don't know if many people stayed and listened, but he goes on to say, like, I don't know, just what do you think?
Slip of the tongue?
Right. Who knows?
Or when somebody said, and that goes to what CDT was saying, like, does it go to that he actually has first-hand knowledge? Somebody told him the story of what happened, which is what I think is that when he talks about, Dylan was like, I'm going to call the cops or I'm going to call the police on you, and that person's like, you're not calling the police and clips his ass. I don't know. I'm not quoting what he said, but basically he's saying like how Dylan talked, like he's repeating a story he was told, or he's repeating what he heard Dylan say. And that is interesting to me. And he thinks that, okay, well, he talks about at first, the first few days, I thought, he was still alive. But then I didn't actually think he was alive because I figured somebody just clipped his ass. But now I'm saying he was alive for at least the first few days. But what good is a dead Dylan?
Yeah. And then he says, what good is a bag of bones? And like puts like a value on, like, I don't know. It's just
what good is it to these people with a live Dylan? Because there's not a ransom. So if he thinks he's kidnapped, those people are looking for a ransom, which is one of the things that I always talked about when it came to this money. Everybody's like, he's got money. Well, even if they had gotten to him when he had a $30,000 check in his pocket, what are they going to do? Take it to the bank? I mean, I guess there's probably people who would cash it for him, but that's weird because that would be way easily traced. But if he's kidnapped, you'd think that they're doing it because of money and they want a ransom. So that doesn't make any sense. Right? He's not the demographic to be trafficked. What are they going to use him for? Farm work? I'm not really sure.
Well, Lena, whatever we're calling her, Sammy 1, brings up, well, I don't know if she brought it up, but she jumped right in the conversation when somebody was mentioning, Mexico and organ harvesting. She's like, I think it was Black Dove was like, well, where are you going to find a doctor out there that'll do it? And she's like, Mexico, they do it out there. And I would love to hear from Justin Rounds if it is true that he got a call. I have it in my notes somewhere, however long into this, stating that Dylan was in Mexico and they were going to start taking his fingers. He says that Kurt says Justin told me he got that call. I would love to know if that's true. And if it's not true, why is Kurt saying that? And if it is true, did law enforcement trace the number? Who did call Justin if it's true?
Yeah.
That's the thing with them. There's so much hearsay.
And if you re-listen to the interview on East Idaho News that Justin was on with Candace, he does sort of allude to something being up that alley of theories. He doesn't say like Mexico. Somebody called me from Mexico saying that they were holding my son, but he does like mention something. And then Candace chimes in and says, but we haven't got any ransom or something like that. But that's the thing is, I'd like your opinion, like when you re-listen to that, because I tend to believe that maybe there was some sort of phone call or tip that was put in, and maybe it was one, either accurate, or two, another misdirection, and Kurt for some reason knows about it. Suspicious.
And see, in one of Salty's chats, there was somebody who kept bringing up Mexico and Dylan could be in Mexico. And Salty this was one of the early ones when he was first starting to talk to Kurt. Salty was kind of trying to shut it down. And Kurt's like, let him talk. I mean, Dylan could be in Mexico. And it's just, and again, playing devil's advocate, like it literally just could be Kurt throwing out his theories. And just like we do, the things I say doesn't necessarily mean I think it's what happened or plausible, but it's just what I'm repeating that we've heard, all these different theories. So it was just interesting, like Salty trying to shut down the Mexico commenter and then Kurt being like, no, it's a possibility. It was just very interesting.
Especially knowing how close his daughter, it follows things on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, what if it was just some troll account or something? I mean, this is all hypothetical, and obviously I'm not accusing that being the truth or saying that's the truth. You know what I mean? But we're just theorizing. I do have a list of things that I just figured we could go, or I could get your opinion on, but it's just sort of, I titled it Strange Events That Led Up to Dylan Going Missing. And I just created, it's only got like 9 things on it. I'm sure there's other things on there too that were just like kind of stood out as being, okay, that's noteworthy. Like the week or weeks prior, some of it's even months prior. But the first thing I put was Jim worked with Dylan when they were at some off-site job, and they roomed together for an extended period of time. And Jim also worked for Dylan doing some deliveries like with potatoes or something, like farming potatoes and using the grain truck for the potato deliveries. And they had an agreement on a payment, but Jim didn't do, I guess, 100% of the job. So Dylan deducted the agreed upon payment for Jim. So I thought that was noteworthy. Thoughts?
I'm like, sometimes I wait to see if like CDT has thoughts. Because I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to go first. I don't really have, this doesn't ring too many like red flags for me. Like it doesn't bother me. It seems pretty normal that they would bunk together to save money. I mean, if they're cuddled up in the same bed, I'd like to see a photo of that, but I don't really like to see. I shouldn't say that. See, this is why I shouldn't have gone first.
I know what you mean. I just think it. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm good. Go. Yeah, you do it. I don't want to see a picture of them in bed together. It's not what I mean. All I'm saying is It seems pretty common. I don't see any red flags with any of that information. And if they agreed upon it, the wage deduction, that was a big thing for me, because at some places it's saying that there's an agreed upon deduction. Other places it's saying that Jim was pissed about the deduction. Not really sure how that is, because they're saying that might be motive for why Jim would do something to hurt Dylan, because he wanted the rest of his money. But if he knew he wasn't getting the rest of his money, then why would he hurt Dylan for the money?
Right. Yeah, maybe not direct motive, but maybe some sort of resentment built up in case there was some sort of freak, or he gets angry about the grain shed gate or whatever. But it's like leading up to it. But that's the thing, is I like hearing your guys' thoughts on these things that I write down. So CDT, anything?
I basically was just kind of say how you guys ended that I do feel like it's not anything huge, but it could just play into the entire relationship between Dylan and Jim Brenner. Like that could have just been one other kind of like notch on the belt that they had a little bit of, Jim's annoyed by Dylan doing that or whatever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then I put Don quits or is fired. So I just thought that was interesting, because Don is one of the first people to kind of be at this so-called crime scene that the FBI spent so much time at. And the fact, they even say in one of these audio clips that I have saved somewhere that Kurt says Jim and Don searched Dylan's camper, and then they seen that his truck was locked. So that tells me that the pictures that we have of Dylan's camper, we already know that, obviously Jim and Don had made entrance. So that wasn't locked, but the truck was. That to me is interesting. Dylan gets the $30,000 check, which, we've kind of all said it was made out to, this account that was supposed to help fund his farming. So it wouldn't be in reach of people without a paper trail of it. But I do think, would it be possible just to have as a possibility, who knows how high in the probable case of it, but could somebody have maybe wanted him to withdraw the money? What do you guys think of that aspect? Maybe he was being held and was get that, or I don't know.
Yeah. And see with that check, because Candace is the one who said that it was made out to something else, right? But Kurt described it as soon as Dylan got that check, he said, we went to his grandparents, and he said we, and I thought that was interesting. So it's did the check go to the grandparents, or I don't know. But I agree. I do know a lot of people think money could possibly be a motive, and it could just be if this is some type of situation where it was tweaker, if you will, they may not have thought it through so much, where we may be like, oh, is he really even going to have access to the money, etc. They might just hear, oh, this kid has a lot of money, just recently got a check. Let's see what we can get out of him. And that was that. And that, if you do think possibly Robert and Chase have a hand in it, maybe they thought they were going to get some cash and it didn't end up playing out like that. But I don't know. That's not really high on my mind, but that's just me.
So how would Chase know that Dylan got that check?
See, that's another good question, because another thing Kurt said is he's like, everybody in town knew about it. I don't know how they knew about it, but you're right. Where would Chase have heard about it? Where would Robert have heard about it? That's a really good question.
And I just don't know many people who are out to rob people for checks.
Right, exactly. But that's what I'm saying.
Back in the day, yes, but now there's just so much tracking on a check, and they're not banks aren't overwhelmed with checks anymore, so they're fairly easy to keep track of.
Right. And that's what I'm just thinking. If they're meth heads and high on meth, they may not be thinking that part through. They may just be
that's true. Maybe. I don't know. So, do you think maybe Dylan's talking to Chase about it during this, short ride that he's given him on Saturday, and then Chase tells Robert, hey, this kid's got all this money, let's go get it?
See, I don't know. Like, I don't know Dylan. Obviously, I just don't know if he would be the type to say that. But I do think it's interesting how, and I mentioned this earlier on Crime Time with Jess, she had texts. She didn't show them, but she read them. And, so far I've found her to be reliable and honest, etc. So I'm going to believe this. So she read out these texts between Chase and his ex after Dylan had went missing, and it was like right before Chase went to jail on the weapons charges. He claims that the last thing he said to Dylan was stay away from Kurt Wadsworth. And then Chase's dad is over here saying how Chase mentioned he was like, or it might have been with the militia group, however you want to say that. I believe the dad used the word militia, and that Chase had mentioned to his father that Kurt was trying to run him out of town. So I'm like, where was Kurt Wednesday the 25th? Did something happen between him and Chase in Monticello? And somehow that's how Kurt got into Dylan's pathway. Dylan picks him up, because it's just, what conversations were they having for Chase to, stay away from Kurt Wadsworth? Again, this is all hearsay. Take it for how you will, but that just really stuck out to me when she was reading out those texts.
Yeah.
So Chase is texting his ex-girlfriend, hey, I told Dylan to stay away from Kurt.
Yeah, because she's asking him about their interaction.
Okay.
And he said the last thing I said to Dylan was stay away from Kurt Wadsworth.
Well, they obviously don't like each other, but if you ask the Wadsworth side, it's because Kurt knows that these people are all meth heads and he doesn't want them around. So he does try to run them out of town, but it's because they're all on drugs, not because he does that to everybody. But if you listen to Chase's dad, it's that Chase says he tries to run everybody out of town. Mm-hmm. But I kind of believe Kurt on that one, though, because if he's trying to run everybody out of town, why is he letting Dylan stay at the camper at his house? Why does he let Jim stay at one of his places for like a year if he's actually trying to get everybody out of town?
Yeah.
Or, Kelly, just to go a little bit in a different direction.
Yeah.
Like I like to do. What if, because Chase saying that, like warning him of like Kurt in a way,
right.
What if Chase had pre-knowledge of something?
Well, if you go to Jim Terry interviewed Chase's son. Chase's son says Kurt's a weirdo. And it's like, again, I don't know the dynamic between Chase's son and Chase. But yeah, were things talked about, yeah. Like what does Chase's son know about Kurt? He knows enough to call him a weirdo.
Yeah, hold on. I have this little audio clip.
For a 19-year-old, Amber, I know that's part of it. But I don't know how people found out the $33,000 check he got. Somehow the whole town knew. I don't know how that happened. I just don't know. But everybody knew, and it's sad because these freaking meth heads out here, boy, they think a 19-year-old gets handle that kind of money. Like, who is this kid? Who is this kid? I've never had a $3,000 check in my life.
Yeah, exactly. A $33,000 check. I'd like to see one of them.
But it never excited.
So everyone knew, according to Kurt.
But why is it a big deal that this kid has a $33,000 check to the rest of town? Like, who is this kid? They would have if they all know so much about each other, they would have known that he was over there doing work and that he was being paid for the work he had done. You see what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, who is this kid? He's the one that's been out there doing all the work that you guys have heard about. Of course he has the check.
Yeah. I see where you're going with that for sure.
And what I don't understand is they act like they know so much in town, but then are mad that they're under suspicion. It's like, but you openly say that you know all this stuff and you claim to because you got an answer for everything. But then you're like annoyed that people are like wondering how you know so much. But the one thing you don't know is where Dylan is.
That's exactly that was the first thing I said to Taylina when I went on Salty's Live. was you do understand why people are looking at you and your dad, right? Like, you do understand that, if he's dead, you are potentially the last two people to ever see him alive.
Yes, I loved when you said that.
Like, that you're obviously your persons of interest in a criminal investigation and your persons of interest in a true crime aspect. You're the last people to have seen this kid, according to you. Not even according to law enforcement, because law enforcement still has not confirmed that Friday morning sighting.
Nope.
So they're interesting to me. Do I think that they did something to Dylan? No. Do I think it's possible they could have? Obviously. I don't know any of these people.
Right.
That's why I'm like, she sounds really nice. I have no problem talking to her. She wasn't a jerk or anything. But I mean, I can't just say like I utterly believe everything you say because you sound like a nice person. Because man, I can tell you right now, I've talked to plenty of nice people who lie all the time.
Right, exactly. And I completely agree with Liz's comment. I mean, that's a really great way to sum it up.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just blindly buy it.
And she was just so, did you hear her at one point? She's like, FBI don't watch these live streams.
Oh, I was like, you really don't know. Like, they actually have entire units that sit around and watch social media. Exactly. That's like the wave of the future. That's exactly what they do. Do they sit around and watch every single live stream? No. How many people in think that everything that comes out on YouTube needs to be a tip and sent in, and how much is just sent to them for crap?
Mm-hmm.
They know they're not dumb to the YouTube of true crime.
Exactly. I mean, somebody is missing. This town is only so big, and there's two people. She's not even from Montello, but there's two people who have the last persons, like you said, to have seen him on this unconfirmed sighting, because the stories have changed according to Candace so many times, and we've already seen that already with them. It's come out that Kurt said that he'd been interviewed like 8 times or something like that, and Taylina says we're on first name basis with an agent and we talk all the time, and I'm just thinking like, that's not good. Like, it just seems like it's the whole
that they're cleared. That's a bold. I mean, she's like, we're cleared. We've been cleared.
Yeah, and then she said the FBI is not going to come out and tell people that.
Yes, but she can speak for herself and her dad. It's all odd.
I'm like, I don't know if the only way these people have been cleared, once again, is by the digital forensics that keeps them away from the area. And we all know that you can still fake that. So it's like, it's so hard to, I leave my phone, make a couple phone calls. I'm going to go take care of this real quick. I'll be right back. Now my digital footprint is back over here in Montello, but I'm over there where Dylan's at. So, I mean, we're going to question it no matter what. I just don't, I don't know how anybody's been cleared. I would not believe that. I don't believe anybody's been cleared.
At one point, Kurt talks to Salty about the first time they met, and he's like, "Yeah, and I told you to get the hell out of my bar, blah blah blah." Like, but he only did that because he said my daughter called me and said there's this guy in town, and he's been trolling me on the internet and all the comments, and he's here. Don't serve him or whatever. So he like went out there and was like, get out of here or whatever. So I find it interesting that Taylina was like all over it and like warned her dad, called her dad and was like, there's some guy in town. And because he was like counteracting her comments through like YouTube.
But Taylina doesn't live there.
Then it must have been the other daughter. Either way, he said, my daughter called me. So maybe
does the other daughter live there?
I don't know. He said, my daughter called me.
Huh. Because, the only other daughter we've heard from, so we've heard from 2 daughters, neither live there, but Taylina goes there at least once a month, she says.
Right, but how would she know when Salty was there is what I'm trying to figure out.
Exactly, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm telling you, listen to it. It's in like either part 1 or 2.
I like Twisted Gemini says, I mean, if I knew more and refused to be on camera, but wanted to talk a good game and someone told me why I looked guilty, I'd shit myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just very, I don't know, interesting.
And
all
I
these
don't
things.
know how much I understand that he power washed the bed of his truck at the farm at his own place, and then drove the truck from Lucin to Montello to show Kurt that it was power washed, just to leave and drive back to Lucin.
But here's the other thing though, is like I heard that being said, but then I'm remembering, and again, I might have it somewhere, but Kurt said at first that Dylan came through town, or maybe it was Taylina, said that Dylan came through to help fix a pivot that Dan Iverson needed or something. And that Dylan was the only one that had the
that
part.
makes more sense. I did not hear her say that. Thank you for letting me know that.
Yeah,
I was like, why is this kid just driving all the way over there to show off the bed of his truck? It's not like the truck was actually clean.
There was Dylan apparently had, which was sort of, now that we're talking about it and making a list of strange things, he apparently was the only one who had this part that was needed.
Okay, so
Dylan did?
Yeah. So they needed him to come through, and which is now like, if we're going to look at things being premeditated, is kind of interesting. If it was premeditated, I'm saying, just going down different avenues. He was the only one who had the part, and maybe chat or somebody knows what I'm talking about. So then that was when he's seen each other, and that's when he's like, he power washed it, blah, 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 which is strange too. Like one of their last conversations is about something that the mother is saying was strange, that the truck looked power washed.
Yes, I do agree with that. And that Taylina just happened to witness that as well.
Well, I mean,
All
it
on
makes
a
sense that she
date.
witnessed that if she's there for the weekend for this whole family get-together thing.
Yeah,
but I don't know why it wouldn't be very easy to confirm that sighting.
Right.
Right, I agree.
Especially if Dan Iverson knows that he brought him this part. Why
Especially-
isn't it like, okay, obviously Dan Iverson would have seen him then, and there should be somebody, even if it's not Taylina and Kurt's eyewitness account, Dan Iverson would say, I saw him Friday morning when he dropped off a part for me.
Exactly. And if you've been allegedly cleared, then why is this Friday sighting unconfirmed?
Yeah.
Well, it seems like they're going literally off of the receipt of him being there Thursday night and nobody being an eyewitness.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're taking and that once again shows me that nobody's flipping cleared because they don't believe anybody.
Right. That's why it's like funny that she's all like, yeah, I'm on first name basis with the FBI. And I'm thinking like, they're just buddying up with you.
Yeah, like maybe them talking to you so much means something.
Yeah. And like you said, it was a holiday weekend. So it would make sense that maybe she witnessed that conversation. But at the same time, if you're looking at, because I even have it on the list. I mean, Kurt's daughter doesn't live there, but for some reason she happens to be there and she's a witness to certain things that are very important, you know, in the timeline and whereabouts of him. And it's just convenient that it all happened on a weekend where she had a reason to be in town also, you know?
And I'm just reading my notes about that conversation. So I have the hour-minute mark, but I have Dylan stopped on Friday in town, and that they talked about how he pressure washed the truck. And then I have spent about 2 hours washing it on his own property. So I'm wondering, I want to go back and listen to that. But did she say, yeah, Dylan told us he spent about 2 hours washing it, you know? Saw him around 9 a.m. So, and then another thing she said the focus was cleaning the bed of the truck from the oil and the diesel. And that's something that Kurt, I feel like I do want to go check that too, because he specifically mentioned how the, you know, truck bed was always so dirt, like filled with oil. You'd reach in there to get a shovel and it'd be covered in oil. But I just don't remember him ever specifying that Dylan had cleaned it, but Tay did. And that's another thing. Candace never talks about the state of the truck bed, but she acts like he cleaned it. But I don't remember hearing Kurt say that he had cleaned it per se.
And honestly, That's interesting. So I'd love to see like what you end up going back and seeing on that, because just talking about, I mean, look at the front of the truck right here. Like, say he power washed it, right, at his farm and told Kurt and Taylina that in Montello. So he would have had to they're 30 minutes apart. So he's driving 30 minutes. I mean, I just feel like there'd be more bugs on there. So that he's driving to Montello, brings the part to Dan Iverson, sees them, says, yeah, blah, 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 I just power washed it and blah, blah, blah. Then drives all the way back. I mean, as far as like, I don't know, I live in New York. We got a lot of bugs, but we drove recently from, we went through Pennsylvania, etc. There was like a lot of bugs on our car. So I'm just looking at this, and if he's gone already a few trips, I just feel like that this front just looks super clean.
Yeah, because and Tay said that Dylan spent the night in Montello Wednesday night at the motorhome. So then Thursday he does whatever, and that's the day they're thinking he pressure washed it. So yeah, I didn't really even think about the bug aspect of it.
I don't know. It looks pretty dirty to me. I don't know. I don't have much of an opinion one way or the other. It looks like.
I love it.
No, it looks pretty dirty. I'd like to see like the windshield and everything else to get a better idea.
Yeah. I mean, that would just be something to kind of examine. Like, I wonder what state the windshield and all that looks in reference to bugs or whatever. But even just the tires. I mean, a few trips already and the top of the tires there completely clean.
Yeah, I go back and forth so much on the whole truck thing. Yeah, Liz said other channels have said the tires are way too clean. But then I feel like Kurt and Tay both kind of say like no one would really know how to work that pressure washer. Same with how she says Jim wouldn't know how to work the backhoe. Basically, it's old and there's a sequence to it and this and that. It's like,
I know. Something to ponder.
Yeah.
So the other thing leading up was Dylan runs into Chase and gives him the ride and calls his mother. So, we have all speculated on the relationship with the family and Dylan and how close he was. So for him to go through that event with Chase and to call his mom, like, to me, always kind of was like interesting. Like, if it must have been significant enough or shook him enough. And now that we're hearing Chase said a warning basically about the Wadsworth, for him to call his mom, I find that even more interesting because he was sort of like given a warning by this guy too that he picked up.
Yeah, I know that really bothers you about him calling his mom when she was at work, but I also think I like to make my phone calls when I'm driving. So if he is driving, it's a lot easier to talk to people like from my car, you know what I mean? Like to have it on my car than to like try to get away from everybody around me, or if I'm doing other stuff, you know what I mean? I don't know. So I'm like, maybe he's driving. Let me just call my mom real quick. And depending on like how strict her job is about phone calls, it could be a big deal. Maybe not.
I will say that, and I kind of agree with that. Like maybe he didn't even know she was working or whatever, but Tay did say, and all I have in my notes is at 1 minute or 1 hour or whatever, Tay questioning why Dylan was so spooked from running into Chase on Wednesday morning. So I don't know. I don't know if she specifically used the word spooked because I didn't quote anything, but it seems like she was saying that Dylan seemed spooked by running into Chase. And it's like, was he really spooked, or is that their narrative of it? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, like, how random is it that you just run into some guy that's walking down the street?
Yeah.
And needs a ride that he probably knows who the guy is, but he probably doesn't know who the guy is, if that makes sense. He doesn't know him. But I mean, Chase's kid worked with Dylan. I'm sure he is familiar with who Chase is.
Right. And I mean, it's just small place anyways. I just find it very interesting, like of all weeks for something like that to take place, it was the week that, he ends up going missing. And I just go back to Jason Jensen, the PI on that one news station, pretty much saying that it was too soon to just mark Chase out completely. And this was, early on in things before it went around that Chase wasn't a suspect, which we still haven't seen confirmed by law enforcement. But he was just saying, like, it's just very striking that all that took place in that week. And it's just, maybe it's coincidence, who knows? But also just Chase that same week or whatever was like shooting and burying dogs out there and seemed to be in like some crazy state of like meth psychosis probably or something like that. I thought that was strange too. Like it was like common knowledge that he was like shooting, and they showed it on one of the videos on Salty's channel.
Oh, it's disgusting. I had to stop the video.
And I'm like, what? Like all these things going on around, and it's just very strange in my opinion. Another thing which just was how it was is he's just kind of in this rush to plant these seeds. And so it just put like a sense of urgency. So when Candace says that Dylan got off the phone with grandma and was panicked to get these seeds in, it's gone around through speculation. Like, was he panicked about beating the rain or was he panicked about something else? You know what I mean? So it's just kind of added to this mystery. And the fact that it kind of led up to, it's all because he was sort of planning a little bit late. And it's just very crazy, call it coincidence or whatever. It's just striking that now we kind of have to wonder, like, what was that conversation like with grandma? Because for her,
I want to know how long that conversation really was.
Yeah.
And what else they talked about. Like, let's be real. Like, does he talking to her? He's like, and at the very end, he's like, okay, grandma, I'll call you back later. I got to go get the grain truck in the shed before it rains. You know what I mean? Like, that's the last thing that's said. And so now that's the important thing. Like, what else did he tell her? How long did they talk?
Agreed.
Like,
and was
go ahead.
Was he calling her back? Was it like, oh, my grandma called, I have this missed call, I'm going to call her back real quick, even though I'm headed out the door? There's so many factors to that call.
Yeah, I don't want grandma to worry. Grandma's a worrier, so let me just call her real quick and be like, grandma, everything's cool. I just got to get this, grain truck in the shed before it rains. So, I'll call you later. Don't worry. Or I'm just thinking like, it probably wasn't like, was it panicked? Like, do we feel it was panicked?
Candace used the word panic in one of her very first interviews. He called his grandma. He was in a panic. He said he had to get his seed truck or, grain truck undercover.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
I don't call my grandma to tell her I need to move something because it's going to rain.
And I tend to really cling on things that were going on before FBI got involved. So when she says certain things, like I tend to kind of maybe overthink them or really read into it. And it's just always stuck out, the sense of urgency that she tries to make it seem. But then it's come out that he called grandma to say, I can't talk now. Like they've used that phrase over and over too, I believe. Like, tell me if you guys remember it. Can't talk right now. I got to go get the green truck or something. Like, I swear they've used the phrase can't talk. And it's
that to me just feels like an end of a conversation.
Right. So why'd you call?
Or like maybe they were talking and it's starting to kind of get that look of like, oh crap, it's going to rain. Grandma, I got to go. I mean, I got to get this.
I thought that too, Teresa, but then Kurt says that they had a conversation Friday, the day before, already about the rain and how he had got it. He had to go and do that. And he said, well, I told him to call me.
But I don't understand, when was he up all night putting his seed out then?
That's what I don't get either. And remember, I told you to go to that minute mark and I said that was the perfect opportunity for Kurt to say Dylan was planning all night and he didn't say it. And then later in part 2 in the Salty interview, he does say something about, well, he was planning all night. But that was hours later after things had been heavily edited.
Candace, also said on Zav Girl, we thought he was planting Friday night. Now, she didn't specify if they thought he was planting like overnight throughout the night, morning hours, but she did mention they thought he was planting Friday night.
And she does mention that he did make progress planting and he just had to finish it. So
has it been confirmed that seed was actually planted?
Now that's another thing, because again, in the very early interviews, I felt like she had said he wasn't actually needing to plant what was in the grain truck. Like he was already done. But then it's like, I don't know. So I don't know the answer to that. I feel like it kind of, I've heard different things on that.
Right. And just Samantha said, FBI and his dad will know if, things were planted. I've heard that things on the satellite were seen as growing and thriving or whatever, but I haven't yet to see any proof of it. Like, why can't we just, if somebody saw that, can you screen record it?
I think I might be able to pull that up. I'll try to do that later tonight.
Good.
Amber's like, get to work. I did my screen record today. Your turn.
I only have like 4 papers that are due Friday. So
yeah,
not important.
I'll put it on my list of things to do.
And you know what, Teresa, I just have to say is I love, you remind me a lot of a law enforcement person that I know who's like in my family, with the way that you think about things. So I'll bounce things off of his head and he'll just be like, see, I don't think that's weird. I just think that it was blah, 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 blah. And it's just very like the way your mind reminds me a lot of his, which is why I think what you're going to school for is just like so perfect for you, because like, sometimes I need help. Even CDT will reel me in and be like, it could just be this simple. It's just this. And I'm like, yeah, it could be that. And I mean, this person in law enforcement called the whole Gabby Petito case before it all went down. He's like, I bet you he did this to her and then he unalived himself. And that's exactly what happened after weeks and weeks of manhunt and fake sightings. It was exactly what this family member had predicted. And it's just, that's why I love having you on panel. And like, you remind me, and I haven't seen Amanda Vita. I know she's busy with her newborn baby, but she's the same way. Like the way that she comes at cases is different than what I do. So I just love bouncing all that around. But yeah, I really just appreciate you both coming on tonight. The one last thing that I had that was like stood out in my mind as just noteworthy was Dylan had plans, according to Kurt, I believe, and it seemed as though there was another interview maybe with Candace where it came out that he was interested in buying the grain shed property. And Jim, living on that, and it was asked to Kurt, what were people paying Jim to be the watchdog out there? And Kurt said nobody was paying him to be the watchdog. It was just an agreement that he was able to squat on the grain shed property. So if that was sort of something that was in worry for Jim, like if they didn't get along already over the gate or whatever, like I just feel like it's interesting that Jim, the main suspect, according to law enforcement, is on the property that it's rumored Dylan had plans to buy.
Okay, so I have issues with this gate situation.
Me
I've
too.
always had issues with this gate situation. It doesn't make sense. There's this whole talk about that he would have had to have called to get a key. Candace comes out, or through the Facebook group, I don't remember which one now, and states that he had a key. But if you go back and you listen to the Heavy D video from right at the beginning, they're talking about how the gate was never closed, and now all of a sudden the gate's closed, and how that was weird.
That's true, because way early on in the Heavy D, they were talking about everything that was locked and thought it was weird that the gate was locked.
Because it was never locked, because it was never closed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Candace makes it very clear Dylan had full access to that property.
Yeah.
So, for there to be some sort of territorial
helicopters or planes.
Yeah, that's of course my house. Somebody has to fly over. But I just want to say thank you to Missy for enjoying my brain enough that if she was a zombie, she would totally go for it.
That's hilarious.
She'd probably have to fight some other zombies over it. They'd be like,
Oh,
"Oh, that's
God.
Teresa from
It's so bad
Criminality."
though, because as I get older, I feel like my brain does not work the way that it used to. And you guys know, after you have kids, your brain, like, it's like you literally give your brain cells to your children.
You do.
I was like, I don't know how these people who have like 8, 10 kids. I'm like, you don't even have a brain left. Like, I can't even imagine.
I know.
Right.
I wonder why most moms are crazy. I'm just kidding.
Legit. Like, I'm like,
It's
for every single child, it's like, okay, wait a minute. I used to be able to remember stuff a lot better.
Yeah, I feel ya. Oh my gosh. And like,
So, yeah,
Agent
so he
Tammy
was going to
said-
buy that he was supposed to buy that land. I know they had been in talks about it. I don't know if there was actually any like documentation about it, but there was supposed to be something, that he was going to be buying that. And that's why one of the channels, I don't remember which one, was talking about like the water rights and stuff. I thought that was an interesting thing, only because if he was buying it, was somebody else trying to get the water rights to that land. So then if Dylan bought it, then Dylan would have to actually pay this person to use the water on his own land.
Yeah, it does seem like it was a good property because at one point Kurt says Dylan was doing his research and realized that there was a really, really deep well on that property. So I guess that was like a benefit and he had like stumbled upon it. So the way Kurt says it is like he stumbled upon this knowledge like about the grain shed property and was looking to kind of make it his own. But I agree about the gate. I don't think there was some sort of territorial like tug of war, like you can't come through thing. I do think maybe it's just him looking into buying it. I mean, maybe Jim's the type where he's like not ready. He's not about to have Dylan be his like landlord in a way or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't. They weren't fighting because this is where that money thing comes back in. If they made the agreement about the money, they're not fighting. If Brenner's like, oh yeah, I mean, I totally didn't half the crap I was supposed to. That's totally fair for you to do that. If there's an agreement, like that's the biggest thing. Some say there's an agreement that there was lack of, or that the pay was short. Others say no.
Right. There's just a lot of hearsay. But if we listen to that, then Kurt says himself that there was an issue with the gate. He's like, oh, yeah, there was an issue.
But how's there an issue with the gate if apparently everybody around him told them that they were surprised the gate was closed?
I don't know. Kurt's just like, he's just bringing, I think like.
And this gate wasn't even like a big deal. Like he could have drove the grain truck right through the gate. Like that doesn't even make sense to me.
I don't know. He says that one, I think Crime Time with Jess, he's like, oh yeah, there was an issue.
Yeah, I don't know. It just I have the issue with it. He was going to walk the 5 miles back when it was supposed to be raining. I have an issue with that.
Yeah,
always have. Makes no sense. And then when he wants the grain truck again, he's going to walk 5 miles back over there. Like typically, you drive your truck over there, pick up your grain truck, drive your grain truck to your property, do what you got to do, drive your grain truck back, take your truck home.
And the thing I have an issue about too is unless it'll be easily provable that he was planning all Friday, but if he told Kurt on Friday that he was already concerned about the rain ruining the seed, why wasn't his priority to bring the seed truck under the grain shed instead of planning that night?
Yes. This was my whole point about why he's out farming all night long. It doesn't make sense to me. That whole story does not make sense.
Yeah, I agree. Nothing with this case flows. Like you hear something from someone, then somebody else is contradicting it. Obviously, we want to trust what the family's saying, and I do, but at the same time, Candace wasn't living out there with Dylan, and I'm not faulting her at all. I mean, he's an adult. He's out there. So I do keep my mind open to both. Like, just because the family says he has a key, I'm not going to be like 100% he had the key. I do take what Kurt says as well. And yeah, the gate thing is odd to me also. And then we have the call. I have to go soon, but I'll be in chat if you guys want to keep going. But
that was the end of my list.
Okay.
Those were pretty much, that was the conclusion.
Right. I just still go back to, remember that call that Kurt claimed Dylan called the landowner on Saturday around 4 and left the voicemail he couldn't access. But then it kind of circled back and Kurt was like, oh, actually, that was Friday. I still wonder if that's going to come out to be true at all.
Yeah, that whole thing seems fake to me too.
Yeah, and we know Candace said that no, it didn't happen Saturday. There was no call like that, but was there on Friday? You know, is that
And you just reminded me of another on Sunday. Like Kurt seems to be a little bit weary on like what he was doing, what happened, because he kind of trips up a bit and he says that Kathy called him Dylan's grandma, and then he's like, "Wait, did she? I don't know. I'd have to talk to Kathy on that." So that's interesting that you say that.
So before we go, can we talk about these 3 vehicles from the sun tunnels?
Oh my gosh, yeah. That bothers me bad.
Do tell.
So when I was talking with Taylina, that's what she brings up, is that there was supposedly a couple that was out there that was out in this area around that afternoon. And this is when I brought up, do you think that Jim didn't want, like Brenner didn't want these people on his property or on that property? So he starts like shooting and Dylan just kind of gets in the way. And that's when she's like, well, why do you think that Dylan was shot? Why do you think that Jim would shoot at people? So, but then she goes into telling me about these 3 vehicles. One is a dually. One was a truck with a camper, I believe, a truck with a trailer. And the other one was like a 4-wheeler. I have that actually written down, but of course I didn't bring that notebook with me. But there's 3 different vehicles by the sun tunnels, and the sun tunnels are like basically when the sun is setting or in a certain spot as it's going down, you can see the sun like straight through the tunnels, and I guess it's like supposed to be really pretty. I don't know, but it's not too far from there. So supposedly people were at these sun tunnels that witnessed these 3 vehicles coming that were around that property. And she said, so when did I talk to her? A few days ago? It was like a week prior. She said that the FBI was not aware of these vehicles until she was telling them about them, that they had told, did they tell Elko? Who did they tell? That one of the law enforcement agencies, Box Elder, that's who it was. The Box Elder knew about them, but that the FBI guy said he did not know about them. So they were going to be looking into these 3 vehicles that were out there around 3 p.m.
Yeah.
Yes, this is ringing a bell now. I think I might have screen recorded her explaining this.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, so now you have these 3 random vehicles. And then she put, I guess later on when Black Dove went up there, she told him that she thinks that one of them could have been Chase's. So this brought me back to the whole Chase's dad's interview. Chase's dad says that the reason Chase was walking was because his truck broke down out there somewhere. And so he goes and starts walking, and Dylan picks him up. He can't take him the whole way, but Chase's phone is dead. So he lets Chase charge his phone. He calls his dad from Dylan's phone first, and then Dylan ends up dropping him off, and he keeps walking, and his dad comes to pick him up. But if you remember, Chase's dad also said that he came the day before, but Chase was nowhere to be found where he was supposed to be after this truck broke down. So she says that she thinks that maybe one of them was Chase's. So I'm like, okay, well, did Chase's truck have a trailer? Did Chase's truck a dually? That would be pretty easy to figure out. And then that doesn't line up with Robert Aviles being at the gas station and being all weird that Chase was in the car. If Chase was in the car, if they're leaving that property, you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's why I asked about the time, because if they're leaving the property at 3:00 and they went out there to go get Chase's truck, right? So Chase asked Robert for the ride out to the farm or to that area so he could pick up his truck.
Yeah.
Or fix the truck or whatever. So he goes out there, they go to get the truck. Is the truck now working? Do they fix the truck? Like there's so much to that little time.
Right.
Are they stopping at the gas station on the way out there in the morning? Are they stopping at the gas station? Somebody in chat earlier had said around 3:15. So that's the way out. Why is Chase in the car if they went out there to get his truck?
And Ty mentioned how and I think maybe Black Dove also knew of some abandoned vehicle that Chase had led. Okay, so there was an abandoned vehicle and it was white, I heard. And then in addition, Chase was seen like weeks prior driving like a white SUV. And you know how sometimes people call SUVs trucks?
Yeah.
So everyone was questioning, like, did they ever get that abandoned vehicle? And was it the one that Chase was supposedly like working on or whatever?
Right. Well, Liz is saying, I thought she said one was the ATV that Chase was driving on in the morning. But how does that make sense? If Chase asked Robert for a ride to go out there, why is he driving an ATV? Does Robert take the ATV with? You see what I'm saying? Like I don't understand that.
Yeah, the vehicles need to be lined out.
If there are 3 vehicles.
Yeah, if that's even true.
Because we also don't know so did one of those vehicles belong to this couple that was supposedly out there? Is the couple a totally separate entity that witnessed these 3 vehicles? Are they 2 totally separate situations?
Yeah.
All good questions.
And then I thought it was interesting too how she is like, Jim didn't take the exit near the sun tunnel. It's like, how do you know what exit James Brenner, Jim took? Like it would make more sense to me if she would say something like, and I really, to my knowledge, he never took that. Like she says everything like so matter of fact. And I'm like, how though? And it could just be the way she, speaks and release information versus me, could just be that. But she acts like Chase wouldn't have taken, or I'm sorry, but Jim wouldn't have taken that.
Right. And I think that from the years that we've now done true crime, we don't take anything like that at face value.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I don't. Somebody told me something and now I'm going to tell you, so it must be true because this person said so.
Right.
No, that's not how it works anymore. Otherwise, we're not doing any due diligence. So yeah, she can't say what exit Jim took unless she was with Jim or driving by with, around the same time as Jim. She can say Jim says he didn't take that exit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the thing about her and her father. They say things like firsthand, like seen it, was there.
Yeah.
And she also knows that Jim's truck overheats.
Yep. One more thing in my notes, and then I do need to hop off, but she even says, when talking about that, the person on the 4-wheeler, the witness thought was Chase. Like she even throws Chase's name and connects it to that 4-wheeler, but she's putting it as being from a witness.
But that's my thing is, why is he on a 4-wheeler out there? Where'd the 4-wheeler come from then? Why does he need a ride from Robert? And his dad says it's his truck that broke down, not a 4-wheeler. He doesn't say Chase was out there driving around on a 4-wheeler. And if there was a 4-wheeler attached to this truck, why didn't he just take that instead of asking Dylan for a ride?
And then there's this whole thing. This was a couple weeks ago with the Avila caller who said that Chase did work on 2 of her 4-wheeler quads, whatever. One was found, he stole them both. One was taken apart and he probably used it for parts, whatever. The other, though, allegedly, she says, was this green one. And I don't know where exactly it came from other than I've heard Jim Terry and someone else mentioned, I'm not sure, but talking about like a green 4-wheeler was found out there. And Avila was like, I bet that's mine. It was a Kodiak or whatever. But I'm with you, Teresa. Like if Chase was riding around out there on a 4-wheeler on Saturday, was that 4-wheeler just like chilling in the Lucin area?
Right. Did anybody report a 4-wheeler stolen that afternoon?
Well,
through
not
hearsay,
that afternoon.
apparently.
The Avila caller did, but that was like a year ago that she's had that 4-wheeler stolen. And she knew Chase had stole it, but was like, what are they going to do?
And you know what's interesting about that is these answers can be ironed out if we could get that caller to look at Salty's video, and there's multiple four-wheelers on property. Could she point out the ones that are hers or look familiar, you know?
Yeah, she said the one that was still running to her knowledge was green. The other had been found and like taken apart. That's just what she said.
That's why I'm like, if it was a stolen four-wheeler, it would be pretty easy for somebody out there to be like, yeah, my four-wheeler was stolen on Saturday, the same day. You know what I mean? Like, I think that would be, somebody in town would know that. Kurt would be like, yeah, nope, there was a four-wheeler stolen out there that afternoon from so-and-so's property.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. Well, again, I got a lot more, and there's just so many rabbit holes in this case. I really hope we end up getting more answers and the investigation proceeds further than where it's at right now. Because still to this day, like there's nobody been charged in connection to his disappearance. And unfortunately, that's just it. You know, we want something to kind of progress past what it is right now, just gun charges on these people, or, you know, if they have something solid, you know.
Yeah, let us know what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, if they have some, if they actually can tie, why, that was the other thing before we do get off. I asked if they had taken James Brenner's trailer.
Yeah, you
because
did.
they took Dylan's, and they didn't take James's.
Mm-hmm.
James's is still out there, along with the backhoe of Kurt's. So if something happened right there, why wouldn't they have taken that?
Right.
And apparently, doesn't Chase's dad say the SWAT team or whatever came there and served a warrant? And then Candace says through her interview that they served a warrant on Chase's trailers too.
I'm not sure. That sounds right. Like that would.
But we
make
know they
sense.
served the warrant on Chase because they ended up arresting him. But they arrested him, and I think that one of those guns is probably connected to a homicide somewhere, which is why they thought about the extradition and everything else, is to see if they can get the gun charge if he's actually the one who fired the gun, or is it from a gun that was stolen from somebody else and the gun was fired before that. I don't know if that homicide has anything to do with Dylan's case.
Right. Well, hopefully the wheels are turning, and we've been, you know, anxiously awaiting for something to come forward in relation to some charges or justice for Dylan. So I just appreciate everyone on panel and my mods. And Twisted Gemini said, I truly love the way your minds work, ladies. She tagged us and said, I don't have to ask many questions because before I finish typing, you answer. Thanks. And we just got a lot of love from everyone in the comments, just so you, or chat, so you guys know.
Yeah, it's because you ladies are awesome.
You are.
Likewise.
Nah, you are.
You hang up first.
No, you hang up first.
I'll just kick you guys out. No.
Yeah,
sounds good. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye, chat. Bye, everyone.